is heavy, so few men can carry it, by Amethyst Unarmed, read by Kaiinbed. Part 6 of the Truth series. Relationships include DabiHawks and 2 original female characters. Additional tags include implied reference child abuse, angst with a happy ending, outsider point of view, hurt comfort, Hawks acts like a bird, lesbian character point of view. Summary. Koharu trained to be an EMT, and she was a damn good one too. And she loved it. She really did. Except for when it came to dealing with heroes. Attempting to treat a hero after a fight could get you scolded like a child at best, and reported on as incompetent by the media at worst. One of her friends had tried to bandage a 7-inch gash on Endeavor's arm and ended up with second-degree burns on her hands. So when she pulled the short straw and was sent to look over Hawks, she only really felt a pang of resigned dread. Or the EMT's experiences regarding nothing but and beyond. Koharu Mukai more or less enjoyed being an EMT. Her quirk was certainly suited for it. The ability to see heartbeats through even dense piles of rubble certainly came in handy during earthquakes and large-scale building destruction. It helped in grimmer situations too, like letting her know when there's no need to rush at the scene of a car crash. Those days were the worst. Sometimes she had nightmares about silent cityscapes where she can't see a heartbeat at all, where she's utterly alone. Maybe that's part of what influenced her career decision. When Koharu's quirk first manifested, her parents had nudged her to the life of a hero. It was never anything overt, never openly stated, but Koharu knew. They weren't exactly subtle. They entered her into judo lessons the moment she could walk, gushed when rescue heroes like 13 and Uwabami were on the news. During her last year of middle school, a brochure for UA appeared on her desk. Again, not subtle. But Koharu didn't want to be a hero. Didn't want to fight and train for combat with villains. Didn't want to risk seeing those heartbeats stutter out as a result of her actions. But she did want to save people. So, she trained to be an EMT. And she was a damn good one too. And she loved it. She really did. Except for when it came to dealing with heroes. Koharu couldn't say she didn't get it. Ranking was everything for heroes, and more than half of it relied on reputation and public opinion. She had witnessed a hero from her hometown drop 30 spots in rank after a reporter broadcast him being taken away in an ambulance. She got it. But it didn't mean they needed to be such assholes about it. Attempting to treat a hero after a fight could get you scolded like a child at best and reported on as incompetent by the media at worst. One of her friends had tried to bandage a 7-inch gash on Endeavor's arm and ended up with second-degree burns on her hands. So when she pulled the short straw and was sent to look over Hawks, she only really felt a pang of resigned dread. Honestly, she'd heard good things about Hawks. Every EMT who spoke of him recounted him as polite, cheerful, and actually willing to comply with basic checkups. Koharu found all this to be true. He obeys her every request, even as he repeatedly checked the time on his phone. He starts anxiously tapping his foot, and she takes pity on him. "You seem alright, Hawks," Koharu says as she finishes checking for a concussion. Not even a scrape. She'd be surprised at the lack of injuries if she hadn't seen the current state of the villains, all 9 completely immobilized and unharmed. After treating some of the perps Endeavor has brought in, she's honestly surprised Hawks isn't number 1. His care and efficiency are unmatched. Anything else happened that I should know about? I think one of the villains hit me with her quirk, he says with no regard to how worrying that statement is. He blinks and startles, almost as though coming back to himself. He looks at her with a large smile, but she can see his heartbeat kickstart with adrenaline. But it didn't do anything. I feel perfectly fine. Bullshit. Still, maybe she can coax him into actually taking care of himself. Even so, it would be best for you to go to the hospital. We can monitor you for any changes. His smile widens, but she can see his eye twitch with annoyance. She holds back a groan and waits for the meaningless platitudes to begin. I'm not allowed to go to the hospital. Koharu has to admit, her jaw drops. All the training classes, all the years of experience, everything she's ever learned just flies out of her head. She stares at him, silently, like an idiot. I really need to go, Hawk stammers. He looks scared. He looks like he's about to cry. And suddenly, Koharu remembers that Hawks is a couple years younger than her baby sister. I just broke like 8 NDAs by telling you that. He's trying to get away from her. She can see his wings flapping. He's biting his lip hard, like he is trying to keep himself quiet. Koharu remembers the words of one of the officers first on the scene. He told her to stay away from one of the villains because of her quirk. Her eyes widen. She reaches forwards to Hawks, unsure if touch will calm him or just make him more upset. Given the way she flinches, she guesses the latter. She keeps her words calm and level, trying to ease his rapidly increasing heartbeat. Hawks, one of the villains is registered as having a truth quirk. I think you've been affected. I have to go, Hawks yells, so loudly it startles her. I'm terrified of telling you something that will get you killed. Koharu gasps, body nearly going limp in shock. Why would something like this put her in danger? Could this endanger her family? What is happening? By the time she thinks to ask, Hawks is soaring far above her. She watches until the skyline swallows him. That night, when she gets home, Amy is waiting for her. Her eyes light up when Koharu enters, but freeze over when she registers Koharu's expression. Koharu longs to give in and tell her everything, let go of the terrible knowledge bubbling inside her. She opens her mouth to speak and chokes. I'm terrified of telling you something that will get you killed. She clamps her jaw shut and launches herself forward into Amy's arms and muffles her sobs in her chest. To Amy's credit, she never tries to ask what happened. She only strokes Koharu's hair and hums. That night, long after her wife had fallen asleep on her chest, Koharu lays awake, staring at nonsense pictures in the ceiling spackle. She thinks of that strange admission. I'm not allowed to go to the hospital. And ponders endlessly of what he could have possibly meant in fractal conspiracy theories. Over and over again, she hears his panic stammers, those words, I'm terrified of telling you something that will get you killed, echoed around her. He had looked at her with the same terror held by those in the midst of the disaster, the horrific certainty of life crashing down around you. I should have done something. I should have said something. But she hadn't, and even now she cannot fathom what would have been the right words to say. She closes her eyes and tries to sleep, the after-image of his frantic heartbeat against her eyelids. 2 days later, in the hospital lobby, she spots a TV news report about the disappearance of the number 2 hero, Hawks. She drops a sack of forms and they coat the hallway floor like snowfall. Later that week, Koharu was called into the office of the Hero Public Safety Commission. They didn't tell her what for, but she knew. Considering the timeline the news had constructed, Koharu would have been one of the last people to see Hawks before his disappearance, if not the last. Though, Koharu can't help but wonder what they could possibly expect her to know. Furthermore, she has no idea what to do with what she does know. Amy is nervous. She continually fidgets with the hem of the suit jacket Koharu hasn't worn since her last job interview. She claims she's just straightening it, but each touch of the fabric evolves into a hand around her waist, a brush against her wrist. Amy is touching her like she is saying goodbye. Koharu kisses her gently, attempting to comfort her, but can't help but wonder if she will disappear too. The office of the Hero Commission president is blank, white, and boring. The photo on the walls are close-up of Calla lilies Koharu expects were in the frames in the store. The desk is black, with stainless steel dressings, and is wide enough that Koharu feels the urge to shout so the president can hear her. The room makes her feel small, like an outsider, and Koharu can't help but wonder if that was the goal when the president smiles at her. Welcome, Mukai-san. Thank you for coming in, she says, and she robotically complies. Hello, she stutters and curses herself. The president chuckles, though not unkindly. No need to be so nervous, she assures. I just want to know if Hawks said anything to you before he left the scene that day, or if you recall anything out of the ordinary. You're not in any trouble. Sorry, she says. I just didn't expect to meet with you. I thought an assistant would take my statement or something. The president purses her lips and looks at her with mournful eyes. We took Hawks in when he was no more than a toddler, she tells her, voice heavy with nostalgic grief. I helped raise him, so of course I'm doing everything in my power to find him. She reaches forward, takes Koharu's hand in her own, like she is begging for a pardon. So please, tell me, do you remember anything from that day that could help us find him? She remembers. I'm not allowed to go to the hospital. She remembers the way Hawks cowered from her raised hand. She remembers his heartbeat. No, she tells her. Nothing. Weeks pass. The commission doesn't reach out to her again. She breathes a sigh of relief and puts the whole business out of her mind. Every night she lies awake in hopes that Hawks isn't found. The next time she sees Hawks, he's on the news. It was after her shift. For the first time in weeks, she'd agreed to join the rest of her squad at a local bar for some beers. The night had been going better than she expected, at least, until the bulletin happened. Breaking news, the anchor said, nervous voice, a poor attempt at remaining neutral. Former number 2 hero Hawks has teamed up with the League of Villains in an ongoing heist. Gas filled the bar, including Koharu's own. Someone turned off the music, with the report acting as their only soundtrack. They cut to the video of the attack. It was blurry, taken on a phone by someone who absolutely should have been running away. But that is not why Koharu nearly doesn't recognize him. Hawks is different. Feathers sprout from his hair and trail down to the nape of his neck. His hands are uncovered and spout deadly claws. He's barefoot, so she can see just how inhuman his legs are, clearly meant to perch and kill. She's certain the talons on them are at least the size of her hand. Despite all this, the strangest sight is his expression. Koharu has seen Hawks smile. Honestly, between the TV interviews and billboard ads, it was hard not to. Hawks was known for lighting up the room, making girls literally scream with his dashing looks. Hawks' smile is like the sunset, constant yet endlessly alluring. But Koharu realizes, as she watches him grin as he carries the scarred villain from a burning roof, she has never seen Hawks happy until just this moment. The people in the bar are screaming with anger and betrayal. Someone throws a beer bottle and it shatters against the TV. On screen, Hawks croons and nuzzles his cheek with the man he's carrying, and something in Koharu's chest shatters. Tears drip down her cheeks, and though she is not the only one crying, she is alone in her sobs of joy. Fly, she whispers, words trampled by the jeers and wails of the crowd. Go far from this place. And though he cannot hear her, Hawks sails away, far out of reach. She does not need to see his heart to know it beats free. It's not for comfort, but for liberation. Chapter 3. But sometimes they fly blind. Summary. +2. Dabi is relaxing in the League's living room. It's quiet for once. Shigaraki has gone away, some medical experiment Dabi wants nothing to do with. Twice and Toga are out on some kind of mission. Dabi has stopped paying attention at that point in this morning's briefing. He trusts that Hawks will tell him if he missed anything important, but they both have something more important to focus on. It's the first free day the two of them have had together in months. Hawks had pulled Dabi to his chest and wrapped the wing around him. His chin rests on Dabi's head. Thankfully, Hawks had left him enough room on the rest of the couch to stretch out his legs. No matter how much Hawks may insist on being the big spoon, their heights were not exactly conducive to that position, though he supposes it's better than Hawks' 4 bony-ass shoulders digging into him. Hawks hums and nuzzles his chin into Dabi's hair. Your white's showing, old man, he teases. The buzz of the words tickled Dabi's scalp. He hums in agreement. He'd noticed it the other day. Afraid everyone's gonna finally find out you made me go gray early? Hawks laughs, and Dabi can feel his heartbeat where their chests touch. Red feathers tickle the bare skin of his forearms. Hawks' wings is nearly like a blanket over him, and it manages to banish some of the chill that is born in his skin. He can't remember a time he's ever felt more like he fits somewhere in this world. Their front door opens. Toga and Toys are back. Dabi can hear them giggling from here. He groans and hides his face in Hawks' neck. You think if we pretend to be asleep, they'll leave us alone? He murmurs. Goosebumps erupt on Hawks' neck where his breath brushes against his neck. I think they'd shave off our eyebrows. Talons trace delicate patterns along his tricep. Dabi huffs and prepares himself for the worst. League of Villains? More like League of Extroverts. He's actually starting to miss Shigaraki. He can hear Toga's skirt rustling as she skips towards them. Her hands clap over Hawks' eyes. Guess who? Hawks doesn't say anything. He doesn't move a milliliter. His wing suddenly feels heavy on Dabi's chest, like he no longer has the strength to hold it up. His breathing is so slow, he nearly seems to be sleeping. but Dabi can feel him trembling. Hawks? Dabi asks, shifting off of Hawks' lap and onto the floor. Hawks doesn't react. Dabi's throat tightens. Keigo. He doesn't react to that either. Dabi? Toga asks, as quiet as he's ever heard her. What do I do? It's okay, Toga. It's okay. Dabi lies. He's gotten so fucking good at it over the years. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to back up out of his space. Then you are going to uncover his eyes and move backwards very quickly, okay? Toga nods. It makes her buns bob. Her lip quivers. Hawks doesn't react. Dabi stays crouched and quietly scoots backward. His boot squeaks against the tile and he winces. It's a piercing noise that he knows grinds Hawks' eardrums. Still, he doesn't react. Okay, Toga. Now! Quick as a whip, Toga jumps back and presses herself against the back wall. Hawks' eyes flutter open, unfettered. His eyes dart to all of the exits before settling on Dabi. He breathes. You back with us? Dabi asks, despite the fact he clearly is not. He merely stares at Dabi. His eyes are glassy, and he hasn't stopped shivering. He gasps for air. It sounds like a man drowning. Dabi blinks and is looking at an empty couch. Hawks is gone that quickly. The wind makes his coat flutter. Toga bursts into tears, only after convincing Toga that, no, Hawks doesn't hate you, and, yes, he knows it was an accident, and, yes, I'll take you both to get donuts later. Is Dabi able to go look for his boyfriend? He finds Hawks curled up in his wings on the perch in their room. He's fully shaking now. Each shudder seems so strong Dabi fears he'll rip the branch from the wall. Hey there, pretty bird, Dabi says. Can I come in? His hair ruffles in what looks like a nod, so Dabi takes it. He slowly walks over. They wait together in the stillness, neither of them able to break the bulletproof silence. Just as Dabi fears he's made the wrong choice, a low whine emits from the feathered bundle before him. Hawk straps his wings without energy, lets them brush against the floor. His head thunks forward against Dabi's stomach, and Dabi does his best to muffle a grunt. Instead, he waits. Hawks begins to speak on his own. The whole thing. It's so fucking stupid, Hawk spits. I finally feel like I'm past all the commission shit. Then something like this happens and... He sighs, the anger draining from him. He just looks tired now. And it's like I've never left. Dabi runs his fingers through Hawks' hair. He's rewarded with a warble that he would swear under torture he didn't find cute. That's just triggers, baby, he says, doing his best to sound genuine. Dabi doesn't have a lot of experience with this. Toya wasn't a comforter, but the comforted. And nowadays, Dabi tends to just incinerate his problems. It's not your fault it still bothers you. The kind of trauma we went through as kids, it's never gonna fully go away. Hawks huffs, but I wanted to. Dabi chuckles, and for a moment, they balance there. Then Dabi has to ask, do you want to talk about it? Hawks' laugh is heavy with despair. No, but I'm going to. He sighs, long and slow. He doesn't look up, just speaks directly into Dabi's stomach. When the commission first started taking me on practice missions, there were complications. It must have been 8, 9, I don't know. At first, it was fine. They took me to whatever shithole they were going to train me at, and I'd complete whatever scenario they assigned me to. But Hawks goes to tug at the feathers in his hair, but Dabi catches his hand. He links them together and gives it a reassuring squeeze. Hawks squeezes back. But I started acting out. I didn't mean to. Everyone says that, but I swear it's true. What happened? I became more unruly. I'd start to get antsy before missions, claw at the furniture, shriek so loud the windows shook. It got to the point that even seeing the limo itself would set me off. Sometimes I'd lash out at my handler, try and bite his fingers, and it didn't end when the mission was over. It just got worse. They'd have to lock me in my room for hours until I calmed down. He stops again, gulping down deep, fruitless breaths. Dabi runs his thumb across Hawks' knuckles. I just got violent. I snapped the targets in half. I turned against the mannequins standing in for civilians. tear them to ribbons with my claws and teeth. At first, the HPSC just thought I was being difficult. They punished me, despite how many times I told them I couldn't help it. It wasn't until I went for the throat of one of my trainers that they decided to look into it more closely. He glances up, clearly sneaking a peek at Dabi's expression. His eyes are wet and red, but no actual tears have fallen. Other than the first day Hawks had been struck by the truth quirk, Dabi cannot recall ever seeing him cry. He wonders if it made Hawks feel as disgusted with himself as it did Dabi. When someone keeps a hunting hawk, you hood them. Hawks continues. It keeps them calm for transport, keeps them from hurting you or the people around you. You only unhood a hawk on 2 occasions, when they're hunting and when they're eating. He chuckles bitterly. The HPSC decided to give it a try. Dabi sucks in a breath. His hand falters for only a second. Hawks doesn't comment on it. I don't know how long they kept me in the dark. Kept me in that half-aware state. Long enough for me to learn to stay still. They told me it was because my dad was a villain. That there was something dark in me. And they were helping me get better. He clicks, a harsh guttural noise. I believed them, of course. I had no idea what was happening to me. I couldn't understand why I wanted to destroy things so badly. To kill. I assumed there had to be something wrong with me, right? He bares his teeth, and his sun shivers down Dabi's spine. But really, they made me into this. They were training a hunting hawk, but you can't keep a hawk as a pet. It stays wild the whole time it's with you. He sighs, and it sounds ancient. Only difference is, you eventually let a hunting hawk go. Dabi knew what Hawks was talking about, and had seen an echo of that bloodthirst when they did missions together. Hawks took to killing with little hesitation. He didn't like it, that much was obvious, and he would fight Shigaraki tooth and talon if he didn't think it was necessary. But Hawks killed with the ease of a creature that had been bred for it. His favorite method was clearly instinctual. He would dive from the sky and take down enemies with the same grace as a hawk snapping the neck of a field mouse. It was one of the most beautiful things Dabi had ever seen. The image was a far cry from the gray shade in front of him. I'm so tired, Dabi. Dabi makes a decision. Then come to bed with me. He reaches down and takes his boyfriend's hand. He carefully leads Hawks off the perch, pleased to see he is no longer stress-gripping the branch. He lies on the bed and urges Hawks on top of him. Wings fan over them like the world's best quote. Hawks is already nodding off, eyelids steadily drooping. He melts against Dabi, lighter than he looks. The panic attack clearly zapped him of any earlier energy, so Dabi is certain he is too tired to remember what happens next. Sweet dreams, you dumb bird. He kisses Hawks' forehead. I love you. You have just finished listening to It's Heavy, So Few Men Can Carry It, and the 3rd chapter of Is Not for Comfort, But for Liberation by Amethyst Unarmed. If you enjoyed the story, please leave them some feedback on archiveofourown.org/work/24281515. And if you enjoyed my reading of the story, you can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/Kaiinbed. Part 7 is 9 chapters, so we'll see how that goes.